Well, welcome everybody. Thank you for coming today. I'm Jim Young. I work on the Google for Work team, and I want to welcome everybody to today's session. I think it's going to be a very thought-provoking and interesting session, something completely different than what you've experienced previously. So in introducing our guest today, at Google we have something called 10X, and a healthy disregard for the seemingly impossible. Our guest today has done some things in the physical, mental, and emotional realm that definitely qualifies for that. He basically did the Iditarod on foot, not on a sled. He then went on to do the Badwater Ultramarathon, which is 140 miles, 168, roughly, give or take.
135.
135 in 140-degree heat.
137.
137, not that he remembers. Down to 49 degrees, roughly, temperature variation.
Yeah.
And then did the Vermont 100 Ultramarathon, and then did the Lake Placid Ironman all in 1 week.
It's much cheaper flights.
So I wanted to welcome Joe Sena to Google. We met recently up at his farm for a little unique offsite that we're going to get into a little bit later. So welcome to Talks at Google. To start things off, I thought it was fascinating that when you do ultra-endurance events, often you experience unique things. You hallucinated about hamburgers one time, and I'm sort of curious, how did that condition come about, and where were you, and what were you doing, and sort of walk us through, how do you hallucinate about hamburgers?
I've hallucinated a lot, and as is anybody that's gone beyond 24 hours, no sleep, and really pushing themselves. But what's interesting is you can actually smell. So you're not only seeing what is not there, but you're smelling it. All the sensations exist, and you're absolutely convinced that there's a McDonald's around the corner. We were in Canada at the time. It was 30 below. We had already gone 4 days without sleep. I was starving, obviously. Our philosophy used to be as a team, if you're hungry, you're eating too much. So we were always hungry. And I swore there was McDonald's there. And it wasn't. But a more interesting hallucination story was we were 9 days into a race, 4 of us, and in the sky were these wonderful cumulus clouds, and we all saw the same Disney figures, because 12 hours later we were talking about it, and we all saw the same thing. And so that's interesting. One more hallucination story. We were in Alaska. We were in Alaska, day 8, day 9, and we all saw a bear coming at us. And so we got in position. We got our hiking poles out. We were ready to defend ourselves. It was a tree, hadn't moved. But this bear was coming at us.
I once had something similar. I played 36 hours of continuous tennis, and I was playing singles, and I actually thought I had a doubles partner on my side. I started hallucinating. So per his point, beyond 24 hours, it's interesting what the human mind goes through.
Yeah.
So many people may not know that you actually started off as an entrepreneur at a very young age, and I'm sort of curious your upbringing and the influence of where you grew up, your parents, and how did you start off becoming an entrepreneur at such a young, I think it was in your teenage years or even before that?
Even before that, yeah. So my dad was very successful. He was an entrepreneur across many different industries, and he went broke in the mid-80s. And my neighbor, unbeknownst to me, was the head of the organized crime family, the Bonanno crime family. And he had no...
Hold a second.
he had no... son. He had daughters, and he took a liking to me, and I was looking for work, just a way to make a few extra dollars. And he said, clean my pool, and then that led to another pool and another pool, and before you know it, I had 750 customers that were mostly organized crime people, which had its benefits. And so that was my entrepreneur story at a young age, which ultimately led me to get a job on Wall Street, and I just kept building.
But we've talked about this before. Folks seemingly have it, and you were instilled with certain values and certain work ethic by your parents, but in different respects. Each one had things that they came at you with. Can you sort of walk us through that? I mean, how does that start off in an early life and then manifest itself in some of your later accomplishments?
So my dad was a workaholic, even when he was going through tough times. Everybody in the neighborhood we grew up in, even if they were doing bad things, were pretty committed. People owned pizza places, people owned cement companies, they just worked very hard. My mother, for whatever reason, got into yoga, meditation, health food, and ultra endurance running. And the reason she got into ultra endurance running is in Queens, not far from our house, was a run called the Transcendence Run. It's a 3,000-mile run around a 1-mile loop. And just as a young person hearing that, my limits then were set at a different bar. Well, if somebody could run 3,000 miles around 1-mile loops, what else could you do? Mm-hmm. And so those two influences really shaped me.
You end up selling your business and deciding to go to Wall Street. Can you sort of walk us through the transition there? So you're very successful, you're doing these different companies, the pool products industry, if you will, and in the pools, but you also launched several other companies in the process, but then you said, I want to go to Wall Street.
Well, I didn't say, the last thing I wanted to do was go to Wall Street. I said I would never, and this is going to upset everybody here, I never was going to sit in front of a computer all day. I wanted to work physically. I just enjoyed being physical. And in college, I had met a gentleman who was a very successful investor, and he had begged me to make an investment in a stock. And I had no interest. I was doing very well with the pool business. We now had a construction company. And he would just call me relentlessly month after month that he wanted me to cross the river, go to Manhattan, and work on Wall Street. He saw something with my work ethic that he thought I could really capitalize on. And I kept saying no, and then one day he said, I want you to buy the stock. And he gave me the name of the stock, and I thought, he's nuts, I'm not going to do it. And I went to go collect money in accounts receivable from one of my construction customers who was a pharmacist. And I asked him, and I said, Eli, what do you think of this stock my friend just recommended? He said, I can't believe you're mentioning that, because I was just in the shower, and that's the stock I'm going to buy today. And he sat me down, and he said, you're young, you're not married, you should make an investment. And so he convinced me to take the money he owed me, which was substantial, and put it with his broker and buy the stock. And the next day, the company got taken over. And I made $100,000 in a day, and I said, I'm going to Wall Street. That's a lot better than cleaning pools. So.
Do you have any more tips? Just kidding. So you're very successful in Wall Street. You did have a few bumps in the beginning. I'm sort of curious that, but
Lots of bumps.
Why did you leave that world? You were very successful. You built up this company. I think it was 10 years or so. But what was the aha moment where you said, "This isn't what I want to ultimately do. I want to do something different"? In making that change is a very big change at that point in your life.
Yeah, for me, I don't think it was ever planned to be there to begin with, as I described. And I certainly wasn't going to stay there. I was there for a specific reason. I wanted to make some money before I had a family. And I always had a picture of a little red barn next to my desk, and that's where I was going, wherever that was. And we found a place up in Vermont. The opportunity came up to sell the company. We went to Vermont, and that was that. And I always had this influence on people. My mother, the same influence my mother had, which was I would just rope people into exercise and sweat and yoga. And before you know it, it changed lives. And I really just wanted to do that.
You wanted to change lives, and you started off with what would be called typically elite athletes running these incredible races. But then, I'm sort of curious, you wanted to reach the masses, and you started Spartan races. And could you sort of give us the notion behind those and involving some people that normally may never have exercised or gotten involved to that level? It's fascinating that many events and sports are geared for the upper level, but you want to reach out to all communities and all types of people regardless of their previous athletic prowess or lack thereof.
Originally, I said, I want to reach, maybe 50,000 people in the world would do this. And then we said, wow, we can get to 1 million. We got to hit 1 million, and we hit 1 million. And so now we want to hit 10 million people a year and really affect change, because when they come into our ecosystem, they start eating better, they get better friends, they start going to bed early, they drink less, they work out. And so we nailed it. We found something that really appeals to people that's not, and it sounds funny saying it here, right? But that's not technologically advanced. It's actually going backwards, right? We're getting people dirty. We're getting them to sweat and crawl under barbed wire. And so who knows what that number eventually goes to, but we see all walks, sizes, shapes. 696-pound men come out and do it. Little kids come out and do it. One day I was sitting at the barbed wire. I like to really mess with people sometimes, and I had a fire hose, and I was just blasting people as they were trying to go through the barbed wire. And I thought, wow, that woman has an incredible costume on. She looks like Flo from the Brady Bunch. There's no way she's really 75 years old, but she looked like 75. And so I wanted to blast the costume off her, and it wasn't coming off. She was really 75. I felt terrible afterwards. Broke her teeth. Not kidding.
So who in the room has done a Spartan race or trifecta? I think we got quite a good sampling here, vast majority. So how big has it grown? I mean, it's gone international, so you give us a semblance. You mentioned almost a total number of 1 million now, but how many countries? I mean, this is almost a worldwide phenomenon.
We have to get to 42 countries is our goal because we want to get this in the Olympics. We want to make an Olympic sport. And we're in 17 countries now. We'll reach just shy of 1 million participants this year. And it's just, it's logistically challenging. I look at Google as you walk me around the campus and think, how did you grow this fast? Because on our little tiny scale, it's challenging. But we've got a lot more to go.
Many folks often talk about starting with the end in mind, or you took steps, and some folks do in between. Did you engineer a spot that's 10 years out and sort of reverse engineer from there, or did you take it from a point forward, or you sort of have these incrementals in between for milestones? I'm always curious how folks, when you reach 1 million people and you're taking 10 million, how did you come about doing that? Was it one step at a time? Or
so I have a really sophisticated system for starting businesses. I fire, and then I get ready, and then I aim. so we just, I didn't know what was going to happen. I really didn't know were people going to want to do this or not. Maybe, like I said, 50,000 people would do it. But if you stay in touch with the consumer, and I do personally, I take hundreds and hundreds of emails and phone calls and shake hands and talk to people. And I went through it myself. It's very authentic, right? I do this. I live this lifestyle. So I know what's going to aggravate people in a good way. Mm-hmm. I know what's going to get them healthier, and just from my own experience. And if we keep doing that, it just seems to work.
So what makes successful people tick? And so you wrote a very interesting book called Spartan Up, and some of you may have read it, and I highly recommend it. It's a New York Times bestseller. But you took some of these concepts, and it's not just about the athletic part and fitness. It's about the emotional state. It's about the mental state. Can you sort of walk us through the book, what it's about, and what folks would glean from it by reading it?
What happened was early on, when I was building these businesses, I would bring in lots of employees, just like Google or any company. And it intrigued me, as it probably does anybody running a business, why some people were amazing and others weren't. Why some people could commit, why some people had motivation, why some people showed up and didn't. And invariably I found Eastern Europeans or foreigners in general were just amazing employees for me in the businesses I was building. They didn't ask about vacation time. They didn't ask about getting paid more money. They really just wanted more hours. They wanted to work more. That was a privilege for them. And I wanted to get to the core of why that was, and was there a secret sauce that we can then share with the rest of the world so that everybody could be that motivated? And I think there is. Will people actually follow it step by step? I don't know, some will. I mean, we've gotten amazing response from the book. It was New York Times #2 bestseller. At the core of it is changing your frame of reference. So how do you fight for milk every day when you've got an abundance of milk? And for me, what I do is I do 300 burpees in the morning. They're terrible. It brings me back to a third world country. I want to escape, right? I want to get back to just not doing burpees, and I take a cold shower, and then the rest of the day is easy. No matter what bad news you get, you're not doing burpees. It's not so bad.
And you wrote the book, but you're looking at different ways of getting the message out, and I heard earlier that you're looking at doing a podcast for people to experience this content more often and to have these conversations. Could you sort of get into the Spartan Up podcast that's going to be launched next month?
So we started SpartanUpPodcast.com, I believe is our URL, and we've interviewed in the last 3 months 115 people like Richard Branson, the guy who shot Bin Laden, the CEO of Kodak, Twitter, hopefully somebody at Google, and we just try to get to the core of what made that person successful. As an example, interviewed a person from Lebanon the other day, and he's a multi-billionaire, lives out in LA. His story is amazing. He was in Lebanon at a young age in the mid-70s, doing really well, and they kidnap him. Some people from Syria, they hang him upside down, they beat him for 96 hours. He was definitely hallucinating. He escapes. They throw him out of Lebanon. He loses his employees, he loses his business. He lands in Geneva, meets somebody related to the Shah of Iran. They bring him into Iran. He rebuilds his business and his life over the next 3-4 years, and then they kill a bunch of his friends. They throw him out of Iran. He lands in LA, $17 in his pocket, rebuilds his life, and now he's a multi-billionaire here. just went back to Lebanon for the first time. How does that happen, right? How does that person keep taking one step and putting it in front of the other and then have such a great demeanor and personality? And maybe we can copy that.
So in your course, you're interviewing some amazing people, but you also encounter all walks of life. And do you ever get frustrated in dealing with people that you know can do more but aren't? And how do you deal with that situation?
Every day. It's it's an internal frustration, and I don't know. I have the ability to motivate people. I just need them to show up, which is why I think a lot of friends don't visit me, because I have a tendency to rope them into things. I had one friend show up once who had only ever biked 20 miles, and I said, "Come on, let's go on a bike ride." We went 270 miles. He never visited again. Came back. But I do have the ability to get them out on that first bike ride.
So I went to visit Joe up in his place in Vermont. We got up at 04:30. I think we were at your place by 05:30, and we do our morning 300 burpees. In the back, he's got a very unique little mountain that he's put in place, 1,500 granite steps that you then do after the 300 burpees. And so there's a little shack on top. I got stuck halfway up. So down comes somebody who's a friend of Joe and mine. I met him at this event. It's a guy named Tony the Fridge. He carries a refrigerator on his back and does ultra marathons. But anyway, Tony doesn't lift or carry me. What he tells me is, you're going to get up the mountain. Here's the technique you use. And he got me up in tiny steps with my head up, and I was in severe pain. They were waiting on the top of the mountain. They don't stop until the last person's up. And I'll never forget that. Between the morning workout and that, he's basically got me back on that path, because I've become a Googler who sits in front of a computer way too often. And so this has sort of re-energized me to get back in it, sort of like your Wall Street experience. So I thank you for that. Now, you're involved in a lot of stuff, and I know you're focusing on the Spartan Race and building out, but you also have some new endeavors like the 431 project. Now I'm wearing that t-shirt here. Can you tell us a little bit about it, what it's about, what problems you're trying to address, and how maybe Googlers and people across the world
Could help.
Could help. Exactly.
Yeah, so back in 431 BC, we stumbled upon this concept of the 4 elements: earth, air, water, fire. And so it got me thinking, today's 4 elements are like computer, cell phone, donut, couch. And can we get kids who are expected to live 5 years less than the current generation healthy? Can we get them back immersed in those 4 elements? And to do that, I thought we have to get a bunch of influential people around. You showed up, Tony the Fridge showed up, 148 other people showed up, and we sat around like a think tank and said, how do we do this? And so we've already come up with some really cool and neat ideas, and the idea is to get kids moving. To give you a background on my kids, and don't call social services, but my kids will do kung fu every day for an hour. They'll do wrestling practice for an hour. Daughters too. And my 7-year-old ran the New York Marathon. When he was 8 years old, ran the Boston Marathon. So kids can do a lot more than we ask of them.
And one of the speakers at this event was Winter
Vinecki,
who's run a marathon in all 7 continents. She's 15, absolutely amazing. I highly encourage you to go on to their website that has all the YouTube videos of these speakers. It's fascinating to cover everybody from Winter to some of the health and nutrition folks, to folks doing studies. And I know McKinsey just put out a report saying that worldwide obesity is now a $2 trillion problem. So obesity is going to surpass starvation as a worldwide problem. And Joe is trying to help address that through this Project 431 and getting kids moving again. So when we were up there, we started a new tradition on the last day. And you may or may not recall what it was. So in the military, you get a challenge coin, in which case you have to present each other with a challenge coin. If the person doesn't have it, they have to do something for you. So to this day, Joe gave us these up at the Project 431 the last day. I carry this with me at all times. If I present it to somebody who was also there, Joe, and he doesn't have his challenge rock in return,
I don't have it.
What do we have to do?
You got to tell me. I don't.
We have to do 20 burpees.
All right, let's do them.
So we're going to do 20 burpees, and we're going to get energized for a question and answer
You guys
period.
in?
You guys in?
We got to do it. Let's do it.
Let's do it as a group.
Let's do it. Exercise. 1, 2, 8, 9, and 20.
Well done. Okay, let's go ahead. Bring these chairs back in, and we'll do a little question and answer.
So I can maybe start with one from the Dory. And the first question is, what's the one thing that makes you go after you've hit a wall? How can we apply this to our daily lives?
One foot in front of the other, basically, is the trick. Everybody's going to hit a wall, and so what I like to do, this morning I went for a run. I did my workout, and then I went for a run. And I ran to a point where I kind of hit a wall. I didn't feel like going anymore. Then I had to turn around and get back. So I purposely make sure I hit walls a lot, and you'd be surprised how you can move that wall. I think we live in little small boxes, and we don't really test ourselves, and so it's important that we go out and do some of these things that might sound crazy, but I think they only sound crazy because normal gets worse each year, right? We all like comfort, and so because we like comfort and there's all these advancements in technology, normal is moving those walls closer to us, and a lot of people don't want to hit the wall, if that makes sense.
This is real water. It's not a hallucination. Thank you.
Hi, Joe.
Hi.
It's a pleasure to meet you.
My pleasure.
Spartan changed my life. And
How?
how?
How did it change your life?
I did my first Spartan Beast in 2013, Sacramento. I didn't do any kind of training for it. I just jumped in there. It's like jumping with the wolves. I was like in pain for maybe like 2 weeks. Yeah, it was the worst, but it
woke you up?
It showed me what I needed to do to train.
Yeah.
And then I did my trifecta this year.
Nice.
And then this past weekend I just ran in Malibu.
Nice.
And got the battle wounds to prove it, you know.
But you're hooked. You're hooked.
Yeah, I'm hooked. Just keep coming back for more. The question I wanted to ask you is, I did the rope. I usually finish that obstacle, but this weekend, like the top of that rope was like butter. Majority of us were just like
Sliding?
sliding right through it. I don't know why. So I was all the way at the top, and I had my lace wrapped on top of one of the knots. All I had to do is just pull myself up one more time, slap that bell, and just couldn't get that grip. None of us.
Couldn't do it?
We're all just like, and we'd be up there, wiping our hands, and just nothing. Try it again, slips right through. Try it again, slips right through. And so I just said, screw it. Put my hand up and just leap up for it. And then when I did that, all I see is me falling all the way down. And then just battle scars all over.
Did you go back up?
I tried it again.
Didn't do it?
No difference.
What time did you go out there? What day was it?
It was
Saturday?
Saturday. We ran the 12:15 wave.
I had just been at the rope climb putting Vaseline all over the rope.
I was like, wait a minute. It's like, why is it so slippery
Be
up top?
thankful
And
he
then-
didn't have the water hose.
I saw on the registration you were from Google. I did that.
It was like really like nice and dry all the way at the bottom. And just
Every
at the
other
top.
rope was dry. I couldn't believe you picked that one.
I just saw. Yeah.
You want to know why? Now you know.
Well, it's an honor to meet you.
So there's one more question on our Dory page, and it's so from scaling the participants from 40,000 to over 1 million, what's been the biggest growing pains for the organizations, and any lessons learned from that?
Technology, and that would be a question for Google. We're stressed in trying to quickly develop all the technology required in social and registration, back end, CRM, just like any company our size. That's been, thank God, we have a lot of adventure racing types and super athletes working for us that will work 24 hours a day, hallucination or not. And so that part, I can't say it's easy. That's the lesser of the challenge for us. The larger challenge has been technology.
Google might just have a few cloud platforms that can help out scaling this.
For me, the obstacles and the Spartans are always kind of the fun part, right? Running always sucks, right? Uphill always sucks. And the obstacles were just that little nugget that kind of keep you going after the running parts, right? Curious, out of all the obstacles you've seen, dealt with, thought of, what is one you'd like to have that you can't?
I love the gladiators. I don't know, you remember the gladiators at the end? I love the gladiators, but if we want to be a sport, we've got to be consistent, and you can't take a chance that one gladiator is going to take a guy out or a woman out right at the end when they're about to finish. We used to have gladiators standing at the finish line, so now you've spent 2 hours getting through this thing, you've gone up and down the rope 12 times, you finally got it, and then you get taken out by a gladiator at the end. I loved it, but I don't think it works for us being a sport.
My former office mate got hit by a gladiator going across the finish line and broke his wrist.
There you go.
And then, as a programmer, told our boss that he was super excited to do it next year.
Wow.
And our boss was furious. So my question is, how do you choose the balance between fitness-based obstacles like anybody can, well, not anybody, but you don't need a lot of specific training to pull a tire uphill. And how do you balance that with really skill-based things like throwing a javelin that seems to be just a burpee fest?
Yeah. Well, I mean, you got to have a little, the operative word there, right, is balance. You've got to have, I get lots of emails from the fast runners that say, why do you have to have so many obstacles and why so many heavy things? I get lots of emails from the strong people that say, why do we have to have so much running? Right? People that are talented at spear throw want us to have 9 spear throws. So it's this balance of kind of, without sounding terrible, of breaking everyone, right? Of getting everybody uncomfortable across the spectrum. And if we do that, then we've really achieved our goal. Right? If I slow the runner down, speed up the heavier fast guy or woman, and even trip up the person that's really talented at some of those more technical obstacles, then we've won. So that's the balance.
How do you best prepare and how do you best recover for the events? Do you have any
It just
advice?
depends how committed you are. If as far as preparation goes, when I was really training for my events, and some of the elites that train for Spartan Race will train no less than 3.5, 4 hours a day. So that's committed, right? That's and then if somebody that says, look, I don't have a lot of time, I can't spend that much time doing this, and I'm not that fit, you can get out there just by walking a mile a day and doing 30 burpees and 30 pull-ups. By the way, pull-ups scare everybody because they say I can't even do one pull-up. Do jump-ups. Literally, if you did 30 jump-ups a day, every day, and 30 burpees and walked them out, you'd get through any one of these events. You're not going to win them, but you get through it. And you're still probably going to be a little sore. But that's a bonus. Recovery is ice plunge, ice water. Not hot water, ice water.
Well, great. Well, we want to thank all the Googlers that showed up today. We want to thank especially some Googlers that helped out in the background. Jonas and Sasha, Cliff, and Rhett helping out. And we've got something special in store for you. So we're going to head over to the Garfield area. And we've got our own little Spartan Googler course set up. But first and foremost, obviously, we want to thank Joe and his team for coming today and for sharing with us his vision. Highly recommend his book. And then, of course, the podcasts that are coming up in January. Highly recommend those as well. So, Joe, on behalf of Google, we want to thank you.
Thanks for having me.
And look forward to everyone over at the obstacle course. Thank you.